Hey there, welcome to CodeChef. Today we are going to be discussing the project Rock Paper Scissors, part of our course Projects for Beginners in C, where we have 6 different C projects in which beginners get familiar with C language. So let's begin. So we'll be building a simple rock paper scissors game in this project. So basically there will be 3 rounds, and the computer will choose randomly out of a list either rock paper or scissors, and we'll take input from the user as to whether they want to play rock paper or scissors. And at the end we will count best of 3 and declare the winner. So I think we know the rules for the game rock paper scissors, about which move defeats which, for example rock defeats scissors, etc. So let's look at how we have oriented our project. So as I told previously, there'll be 3 rounds, and for each round we should make sure this happens behind the scenes, that is in the code. We need to take input from the user as to whether they want to play rock paper or scissors, and after taking input, first we need to make sure whether or not user has actually given rock paper or scissors and not some other value. And after checking that, we're going to generate a random option for the computer, that is either rock paper or scissors, and then we're going to compare the user option to the option generated by the computer, and whoever wins, their score will be increased by 1. And at the end of 3 rounds, whoever score is more, we'll declare that person as a winner, that is either the user or the computer. So let's rearrange the following pseudocode to understand how we'll be taking input from the user. So on the right side we have a bunch of pseudocode. So let's arrange this in a logical order. So first we're going to ask the user for their input, so that will be the first step, and after that we'll store the input in a string. And after storing the input, we need to convert all characters to lowercase to handle rock and rock like inputs as given over here. So that will be the third step. And finally we'll compare and check if the input is anything other than rock paper or scissors, and to give an error message in case it's something else. Let's just submit this. So you can see it's correct. So now we will see how we can generate random options using the following code block in C. So first, over here we are setting the random number generator, that is we are setting the seed for that. So the way random number or maybe random choosing in any programming language works is that they'll have a seed based on which they will choose the random number. Because we cannot generate true randomness in a computer because it requires instruction based on which it will work. That is why we'll have a value called seed which will determine in what particular way a computer will choose something. And if we keep changing the seed, that means we will get different ways in which you can randomly choose from a given list of options. So in this case, what we are doing is we are taking time as the seed. So the way time works over here in C is that it gives out the total number of seconds that have passed since January 1st, 1970. Therefore, every second one more number will be added to that value. Hence, the seed won't be same for any second. That is, each second there will be a different seed. That is why we are taking time as a seed for the random number generator. And after setting the seed for the random number generator, first you're going to initialize an array of options, that is rock, paper or scissors, and that array will be called as choices. And then over here we are doing the random choosing. So out of the choices array, we're going to choose whatever is present at this randomized index. So the reason why we have given rand modulus 3 is what rand does is it gives out a random number which might be of any length. That is, it can be of 6-digit length or 7-digit length. But then let's say we get our length as 1543, but then we don't have that many number of indexes in an array. So what we will do is we'll divide that random number generated by the length of the array, and whatever remainder we get, we will use that as an index. So over here, let's say the random number generated by rand is 142, and if I divide 142 by 3, the remainder I get will be 1. So we will choose whatever element is present at that index. So in the choices array at the index 1, paper is present, hence I'll be returning paper. Similarly, let's say rand generates a 6-digit number, then if I divide it by 3, the remainder will always be from 0 to 3. Hence I'm making sure my array index is within the length of my array. Now let's look at the pseudocode on how we will compare options generated by player and the computer, and based on which we will be updating the score. So first we have if user option equals computer option, then the round will be a tie, hence we'll drag this up to the second place. So basically in this statement, we are defining whenever the computer has won, that is user option is rock and computer option is paper, or when user option is paper and computer option is scissors, and etc. And in this case the computer will win and will increase the score of computer by 1. So we'll drag this up, and else in all other cases, that is when the user wins, then user wins the round by 1 and increase user score by 1. Let's just submit this once. So we have passed it. Now in this subtask of the rock paper scissors project, we are going to be handling the user choices. So let's look at the objectives of this particular subtask. We need to update the get user choice function to take input from the user. And if user provides input with different kind of capitalizations, like let's say in the word rock, R is capital or maybe O is capital and maybe only C is capital, all of them should be accepted and it should be treated as rock itself because they all are valid. Hence, you have to convert all of them to lowercase so that it's all normalized. And if user provides any other input than rock, paper or scissors, then we're going to output invalid choice. Please enter rock, paper or scissors. Coming to the code, first you're going to initialize user score and computer score to 0. After which you're going to define a toLower function to convert the char input given by the user into lowercase. So we're going to loop through every element present in the string because it's an array of characters. So basically we're going to loop through that array, and in every element in that array we're going to run the toLower function. So toLower is an inbuilt function in C which converts a particular character into lowercase. So over here we are converting it to lowercase and we are overwriting it in the same position as we iterate through it. And now we're going to look at the get user choice function. Now first what we're going to do is over here we're going to get the user input given, and after taking the user input then we're going to convert it to toLower by passing it to this function which we defined over here. And after that we're going to compare it with all possible options, that is rock, paper or scissors. So we are going to use the function strcmp. So the way strcmp works is we're going to give two strings in the bracket, and if those two strings are equal, it's going to give out an output of 0, or else it won't give an output of 0. So if the output is 0, we can tell that both the strings are equal. So we're going to compare the user choice with the rock, paper and scissors respectively with an OR condition. So these two lines over here means OR. So if user choice equal to rock, or user choice equal to paper, or user choice equal to scissors, and only then we're going to return the user choice variable, or else we're going to return this error message. Now in the main function, first we're going to print out the menu, that is let's play rock, paper, scissors. This game is best of 3, and then we're going to initialize n equal to 0. So n over here is the number of rounds to keep track of the current round. So while n is less than 3, because 3 is the total number of rounds we have for this game, we're going to print out the round number. And the reason we give n plus 1 is at first we are given the round number as 0, but we cannot print it out as a round 0 to the user. That's why we'll be adding 1 to it to show that it's round 1. And now we are going to run an infinite loop using while 1. And after asking the user to input either rock, paper or scissors, over here we're going to take input from the user. So this over here is basically a different way in which you can take input from the user. So this will be where we'll be storing the input given by the user, and this will be the size of the input given by the user. And over here we are defining which stream we are going to take input from, that is the standard input stream. And now over here we are basically going to mark the end of the string. So as you know, in C we do not have a string data type alone like float or integer. That is, string is basically an array of characters. So to mark the end of a string, we're going to add a \0 in the array of characters at the end of all the letters. So over here we took input, and over here we are just going to add the \0 to mark the end of the input given by the user. And after that is done, we're going to call the get user choice function. And if the user choice returned from this particular function is the same as this error message which we defined over here, which means that the user has given an input other than rock, paper or scissors, then we're going to print out the user choice given by the user. And in case it's proper, then we're going to increase the round count by 1. Then we're going to break out of the infinite loop which we gave over here. Let's just run this code once. So you can see we printed out the main menu, and let me give input as, let's say, ABC. So you can see I've got an error message, and let's say I give rock. So I've gone further to round 2. So let's just submit this code once. So I've passed all 3 test cases. Let's move on to the next subtask.